Welcome back. You're still watching Your Story on the SABC News channel. Now, July is National Savings Month in South Africa. At this time, people are encouraged to start putting money aside every month instead of spending. But it does seem that we're a country of big borrowers and poor savers. Various reports suggest that metro working populations spend an average of about 20% of their salaries just paying back debt, and as little as 48% of credit-active consumers are up to date with their credit repayments. So what do we do to turn our situations around? Well, financial education entrepreneur Nicolette Mashile joins me now to give us some clues. Nicolette, or financial bunny, good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for the invite.
All right, it's sad that we only have 1 month because it should be every single day of every year that we have a National Savings Day.
True.
So why do we not save in South Africa? Why are we among the worst savers in the world?
Look, I think there's a whole lot, there's a big mix of how we got to where we are, right? And I think one of the biggest reasons is obviously coming from the, very painful past that we come from, where we're a group of have-nots for a very long time. But I think also because of that, there was then a build of structural things that have stopped us from, being able to save. And one of those is the fact that we are probably one of the most financially excluded communities, in the world. So I think some of those things are the reasons, but there is also a little bit of, yourself actually admitting that you are not saving. But I think one thing we can do, and we can do correctly, is to start maybe redefining what savings is. It's not necessarily just taking a sum of money and putting it away somewhere else. We need to start looking at our own personal finances and saying, how do I better save if I cannot take 300 Rand every single month and actually put it away?
So what kind of things can we do other than taking cash and putting it away?
Let's start with debt. You spoke a little bit about how we spend 20% of our incomes, servicing debt, right? Debt is probably one of the most crippling things that's happening in this country, and is one of the reasons why people cannot save. So if you look at your interest rate that you get given just on short-term debt, right? So this is your most expensive debt, your unsecured debt. It's probably ranging between 12% to 23, 27%. If you start channeling some money into paying off your debt, you start to free up some money. Now you can save, right? So I think we need to aggressively tackle debt, and that is one way of saving. So instead of me trying to convince myself that I need to put away 300 Rand every single month, let me see if I can take that same 300 Rand and actually put it towards my debt. Now, how do I do that? The thing about saving is that it's not in isolation, Peter. It goes hand in hand with the other money rules. So you do have to make some financial sacrifices. You do have to live below your means. I mean, I always tell the story. At some point, I was working in an advertising agency. I mean, I was not earning great, but I was earning okay. But I still shared, even at my big age. And the thing is, people will say to you, I don't want to share. Oh my gosh, I need my space, personal space, Look, you've got to save so you can make a financial sacrifice, and then use that money and I channel it to something else. So I think that's the most important thing, is you as a person know your own personal finances. And it's so important that I need to put this out. People need to stop jumping on the bandwagon of just saying we can't save, because it's too simplistic to just say I cannot save, right?
So if you're employed,
yes,
what you have to, the first step is to say, this is how much I get every month. I have to live a life that survives below this amount.
That's it. I always say to people, why do people actually pay SARS? They pay SARS because it's a legislated thing. They have to pay SARS. But somehow they've managed to live with that specific amount that comes into their bank account. Now, if you decide that monetary is how you're going to be saving, and you just put in a stop order on your account and some money gets literally put away, you will start to adapt to living with a literally below your means. But it is a habit that you've got to learn. It is a culture. Saving is something that you've got to keep practicing, and you've got to keep choosing it. I think the other biggest thing is that people don't know where their money is going. A lot of people know how much they earn, but they don't know how it's spent. Somebody will say, oh, I don't know what happened to my money this month. Last month you managed to survive with the same salary. This month all of a sudden you don't know what happened.
So how do you check? What do you check?
You've got to have a spending plan, and it's also sometimes called a budget. You've got to write down what it is that you do with your money. I almost say I wish the banks could create envelope systems so that when you get your salary, right, it will go into different envelopes in accordance to how you've actually proportioned it, right? So you know that once your petrol money is finished, there's no other money you're allowed to use for petrol. Now you can't gallivant. Now you got to sit still. The The problem is that a lot of us, because we can move money from one element of our budget to another, that's where we get it wrong. So people, we need to start budgeting and start creating a proper spending plan.
And I think one of the other issues is once we moved to electronic money, we had no sense of how money moves and gets spent.
Yeah.
Because it's just swipe. And sometimes we swipe, we haven't even seen what's registered on the till.
Yeah, and remember that with some of the banking mechanisms, it doesn't go off. The ledger doesn't actually update immediately. So now you've spent. You think, oh, I still have a little bit of money, so let me keep spending. So there isn't that psychological pain of paying because everything is convenient. Everything is noodles, 2-minute noodles. We just boil. It happens. So I think people have to be intentional about being managing their money a little bit better. And unfortunately, it does start with you as a person.
But Tina, as black people, we have black tax as well.
You must plan for black tax. What is this now? It doesn't just jump on you. You know what is happening in your family. You're well aware. You're probably one of the only people that know what is happening in your family outside of everybody else, right? Yeah. That's number one. So you've got to plan for black tax. If you know it's coming, plan for it. What is the first thing? I think families need to have emergency accounts. Every single person who is in the family, who is employed, must contribute to that account. So if anything comes up, we've got somewhere we can pay. You know what people say to me? Oh, Yayazi family, I'm Nicolette. No, stop that. We've got to build a proper trust. We've got a trust deficit amongst the black community. We've got to start building it. Things like stokvels didn't come out of nowhere. Our parents were using them and they were working. Why are we not taking that model and modernizing it? But the first thing we do is we trust big corporations that what's the difference between the funds that these big corporations have versus the stokvel that your parents have? None. Those are just big, modernized stokvels.
I get a sense also that you have to teach kids from young how to behave with money.
Yes.
How do you do that? What do you teach them?
Let me give you an example. When we were growing up, a lot of us in the black community, the one thing we knew was end of the month, because that's what you heard most of the time, right? Wait until the end of the month. So we all wait to the end of the month and a financial miracle happens at the end of the month, right? But what parents were essentially doing then is that they were actually teaching us that at the end of the month, somehow we can make things happen. So what happens to us? We grow up to become adults that don't understand the difference between needs and wants. So when money comes in, even a saying, money must work. So now, but money must work, but how does it work? It doesn't mean that it works by us buying and just consuming, right? And if we are consuming, and you said something a little bit about it in the beginning, you said we are a consumer country. I'm like, you know what, it's fine. Let's be a consumer country, but what are you buying? That's the most important thing. Because what is important is that people need to start buying assets. Now, when you say assets, people are like, ooh, I don't have money to buy a house. What is this girl talking about? No, guys, they are assets that a chicken is an asset. It's livestock. Yes, it's not easy. Nothing in life is easy, right? But you've got to start understanding. The stock market, how many of us are so afraid of going to the stock market? Why? Because in this country, they've made the stock market very elitist. I mean, honestly speaking, there really is no huge science to investing in the stock market. And there are shares that are going even below 10 Rand, that you could literally teach your children to start buying shares from as young as they are, right? But because we've made it a them thing and an us, that's where we create a problem. So I think it's so important that when we do start teaching children about money, we need them to actually understand how to cordon off and how to proportion your money to certain areas of finance. That is investing, that is saving, that is even donating. Children need to understand that money doesn't have a power over them, and the banking institutions, financial institutions are not these high and mighty things that they have to look at only when they need help. So I think we need to start creating a proper, healthy relationship with children when it comes to money.
You know, there's a book, and I think you've read it, you've talked about it, The Millionaire Next Door.
Yes.
And what I found fascinating about that is that they don't live a millionaire lifestyle, but they have accumulated the wealth. And so what it speaks to is, you know, drop the Skotane lifestyle and all of that. And just as your wealth, as your job gets better and you get more money, you don't have to move house.
Yes.
You don't have to get a bigger car.
Yes.
You now have an opportunity to take that extra cash and start investing it.
But obviously, psychologically, we've got to ask the question, how do you explain to a graduate that's just come out of university, oh my goodness, the 3 years was so harsh, or they've gone to medical school, how dare you tell them to drive an A to B, right? Also maybe because they've been influenced by their fathers, their heroes, you know, the father's maybe liked a certain luxury brand car, and he's like, my son is going to get this car when he gets out of school, first job. So I think it's a lot of psychological stuff that we do need to work through as South Africans generally. But I think the beauty of the Millionaire Next Door, which is what a lot of people don't seem to grasp, is that money doesn't have a look. People think that they have to look rich. No, you don't have to look rich, because when you start looking rich, we know that you are now spending all your money on the outside, and there aren't many investments that are happening. I don't hate on anybody that has the ability to spend their money and how they spend it. That is up to them, right, at the end of the day. But if you are that person who is living a very luxurious life, but you don't know where the next paycheck is going to come from, or it's just in your world, it's just an outflow of money, that is something that you need to start asking yourself, why am I doing it? Why do I need to drive a certain car? Why do I need to live in a certain house? Why do I need to wear certain brands? I think that's when you start to understand at 3 a.m. at night when you are lying in your bed and you're like, I don't need to do this, you know?
All right, we've run out of time, but perhaps as a final thought, it's the 8th of July now. Most of our debit orders have gone through. We spent too much money at the Durban July. We're already now starting to dip into our credit cards. What do I do from tomorrow to stop this madness?
I think the first thing you need to do is to become intentional about your money. I think that's probably the most important thing. You also have to be honest, because the reason why people get so touched when you talk about money is because they actually feel like you are attacking them personally. So you've got to be honest about your money. I think that sit down and redo your spending plan, relook at how much money is coming in and how much money am I actually taking out. And then also weigh, because it's not about how much you make. It is truly about how much of it are you keeping. And take away the psychological barrier that you've put in your head that I cannot save. You can. You can save.
Just find ways to do it. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure listening to you and getting these pearls of wisdom. And I get a sense that if we try, we can also educate ourselves on these issues.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, education is important.
Nicolette, thanks so much indeed. We'll chat again soon, I promise.
Thank you so much.
All right, so it's National Savings Month, but it should be an issue that you deal with every single day throughout the year and not just this month. Now, an Auditor General's report on the Northwest municipalities points to the appointment of incompetent and unsuitable senior municipal officials as a major contributor